Do you want to chat with me about how you started
Sure.
with pastels and acrylics and becoming an artist?
Well, I've gone to a lot of museums over my career. I traveled quite a bit, so I was able to see some of the best museums in the world. And boy, I took all that in, but I didn't have time to find a teacher or do it. So I couldn't. My job was all consuming, but as soon as things began to change for me, I moved to Beulah, and then I had my own business, which was a computer-based business, and I was able to begin my art career. And Jill Starkey showed up and offered a class, and we all in the community who were interested in art went, and a lot of people from Pueblo drove in, and she probably had 12 people, maybe 15. So that was the beginning for me.
And what medium did she teach?
She was teaching pastel.
Oh, nice. Perfect. So talk to me about like where you grew up and where your schooling, what you did in your early
Perry,
career.
Oklahoma. I grew up. That's north central, just south of Wichita, about 100 miles on I-35, a town of 5,000 people. So a small town I grew up in. Yeah, following high school in Perry, I went to Stillwater, which was 25 miles away, to Oklahoma State University and got a degree in English, literature, and speech and communication. And then I moved to Oklahoma City, where I started my career in a hotel. And that took off. I loved hotels. So I was enamored and stayed with that for 25 years. I got my master's at Regis in international communication.
Nice.
And that was in 1993, some years ago.
Nice. And I think when we were talking earlier, you were telling me how you moved quite often for your hotel career.
Yes, about every 2 years. So I didn't even unpack. I just moved the boxes to the next city and then went to work that day because they were in dire need, as usual. Hotels.
Where are some of the places that you lived during those years?
Dallas 2 times, San Antonio, Nashville. Spent a lot of time in Mexico because I worked for Posadas de Mexico, and they were based out of Mexico City, and I was based out of Dallas, and he hired me to do his sales and marketing. So I had 54 hotels in that country. So that was a curve for me, a learning curve, and I got to see a lot of art. So that was exciting.
So what age were you when you really started getting into artwork? You know, becoming a developing artist and then like becoming an artist?
50, I believe, was about 50. The time that I was able to finally, it takes time to find an instructor, and interestingly enough, Jill just showed up. You know, they say that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and that's exactly what happened. I had the time, I had the inspiration. I'd always had the inspiration to do painting. So I was happy to finally find someone that could guide me through what materials to buy and how to use them most effectively. And the learning is never over. I just finished an acrylics class, 4 days, 9 to 4, 9 to 4, 9 to 4, 9 to 4. It was exhausting. You have to be in the moment at the moment, and we had live models, and every 10 minutes we were changing and starting another image, and the model was taking a different pose. So that really developed my quick eye to get the angles correct. And I haven't done a lot of work in that area, with models. So that was all a new experience for me. So it was never an end to what you can learn in painting and in art.
Talk to me about what what inspires you and what visually you love to capture.
Just about everything. And that could be a problem or it could be a gift. Who knows? But yeah, I like interiors. My animals act as my models. They're free of charge, so I get lots of animals. And I enjoy recently wildlife. I've been doing quite a bit of. And then you'll see, I just started this cow and calf. So yeah, I'm all over the board with subject matter. I think I'm impressionistic.
Impressionistic?
Realistic, impressionistic.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I studied the Impressionists and the Post-Impressionists and got to see a lot of their art in Europe, and so that drove me also. Just their stories and their desire to do art. I mean, you got to remember that we get to buy these pastels now. They're in little cubes, but back then they actually got rocks, and they had to do it the hard way.
They made their own.
They had to stretch their own canvases. They had to take it from ground zero. It wasn't like they could go to the art shop and buy materials. So that's a gift that we're able to just buy it and start the art.
So Janis, talk to me about your process. Like, how do you go start and finish a work? What's your process?
I find an image that I really like, and sometimes it's my image. I took a photograph of something, and sometimes it's an image that I see on Facebook or a photographer has done. So I find the image, and if it's copyrighted, of course I don't touch it, but if it's there's a photographer I work with in Colorado, and he has given me permission to do some of his wildlife work, which I'll never get those shots, but they're beautiful, and I love to pastel off his work. And acrylics also. So I take the piece and crop it according to an interesting aspect of it, and then draw it onto the paper. And pastel has a certain kind of paper, spectrum, I use as mine, and acrylics, as you can see, go on boards or they can go on canvases, and I draw it out.
Do you draw freehand, or do you
Yeah,
like
I
project the image? You draw freehand?
I draw freehand. I do put a grid sometimes. I grid the image itself and the paper so that I want to make sure that I get my sweet spots with something that's important, pertinent, because our eyes will land into those 4 sweet spots readily. And then I want it to be an interesting piece, one that someone would see hanging on the wall and walk across the room to go look at closer. So then I begin my color selection, and the work begins.
Where are you with your color?
I am pretty traditional, I think. I have done a few Southwest paintings, but it is an effort to put odd colors, so you're working with the cools and the darks at that point. The cools are the blues, the purples, and your brighter colors, the oranges, reds, yellows, so you're going to use those to get shadows and deep, but it could be donkey that's yellow, purple, turquoise is a real popular color, of course, for Southwest, but yeah, for the most part, I try to stay traditional. And when I do Southwest, it's because they're having a contest maybe somewhere, and it's Southwest is the theme. Yeah.
Do you enter lots of shows? Is that like a,
Well, the Art Guild in Pueblo, I enter usually, and the Beulah Arts Festival, and sometimes I enter in Westcliff or Florence, so I stay pretty close to my home base.